Hey guys, I literally am just jumping on because if I don't do it now, it's like every night I go, oh, I really should do a live and just say where I am and what's going on. And I just honestly, this has been a shite year. And I want to say hi to whoever's coming on. And I'm just going to do this video live as opposed to the pre-recorded stuff because I don't even know if it's broadcasting. I'm not kidding when I tell you that. It's been so long since I've done this stuff that I don't think anybody's like, they're probably like, what? She's even live? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to share with you a little bit about what's been going on and as much as I can handle right now. And then I will promise you about some of the things that are coming up. So the first thing that has been happening is I think some of you followed last year that my dog Owen had been given, this may be a little hard for me, he had been given 3 weeks to live, and he lived another 18 months. And it came down a couple days before Christmas that, as some of you already know, it's the hardest decision you'll ever make in your life. I mean, really, if you have a pet, and I'm specific to a pet, and it's been, I've been really like just in pain. And that I will tell a little bit more about. I just want to say hi to the people and let you guys know how much I really do miss you and how much I really do care. Even though it seems like I don't, because I haven't been here, it has been just excruciating in moments. And I think some of you understand. And you know what really encouraged me? I'm going to be really honest and say, I ended up looking at last night. I was just kind of like wondering, oh, I want to see how some of the old gang is doing, you know, some of the people I used to watch. And I went over to Mommy Ramblings, and I was absolutely horrified to find out about her loss. She lost her son earlier in 2020, and I couldn't, like, I just had no words, and I was crying through the whole thing. And I literally, did you ... Oh my gosh. Yes, you messaged me. I remember that. Josher, oh my gosh, so good to see people. So really, I think it may be somewhat noticeable that I kind of like retreated this year. And part of it was that, oh gosh, you guys, I'm like crying mess. Part of it is that the verbal abuse online came to such a pitch that I literally found myself getting caught up in it. And I'm like, no. This is so dangerous for me, you know, and I just want to say that, you know, anytime we as a collective, anytime there's a thing of like, I'm going to hate a fellow American, it's bad. It's bad because, you see, that's where we misstep. Duty Ron, oh, thank you. Thank you, Duty Ron. And I have to tell you, if it wasn't for a couple of the like, seriously, you guys, Duty Ron texted me a few times, like, are you okay? Like, it's just like, there's a disturbance in the force. And I was like, yeah, I'm okay. And there have been some very serious things that have been going on that I want to just share with you guys about what we're going to need to survive in 2021. Because I really felt this moment, you know, yeah, Shady Booty, thank you. I was just going to mention Chris Watts, because one of the things I promised everybody over a year ago was, and you know me, I'll bring up a couple things that are going on, but I want to also talk about some of the planetary influence, which is really kind of stunning right now. So I'm just writing that down so I don't forget. Okay, so let's talk about that for a second. I want to talk about the Watts case. You know, having that distance from it and not speaking about it. And I really felt like, you know, we hear about it and it's so shocking, but I really started to feel like, oh my gosh, the victims of it, right? They live with it every day. And I really didn't have anything to say. If I'm being honest with all of you, I really didn't have anything to add, because I really felt like there wasn't a sense of peace, and I really didn't want to. Something. I'm just going to be honest with all of you and said I didn't want to. I'm sorry. I know I'm like somebody's going to comment. You're wiping your nose. Oh my gosh. There's always one person, right? Like they can't stand the moment of reality. Anyway, so I really felt, and don't misunderstand me. I have followed some of the people. I followed Shanann's best friend and her journey, and just being honorable to them. Thank you, Duty Ron. I really appreciate it. He's just what a friend. Okay, seriously. So I want to tell you a little bit about what happened for me with the Chris Watts thing. I got into following this guy Chris Voss. I think that's his name. Anyway, he's a hostage negotiator, and his story's fantastic. And I started watching and listening, and I'm not kidding you guys. I'm watching it, and all of a sudden he says, because there was a famous bank robbery. You probably know about it, Judy Run, but a famous bank robbery in New York. And he said, one of the things that they were doing was looking at the cars parked outside as possibly being one of the criminals, right? Well, you can imagine that I'm sitting there and I'm just kind of listening, and that was the thing. Like I still have been listening to some true crime, but more in an energetic kind of thing. And so I've been listening, and and all of a sudden he says, yeah, and the car was registered to Chris Watts. And I went, what? Like I just went, wait. And I played that back and I went, what? And the actual perpetrator, the kingpin, if you will, was named Chris Watts in that case. And I was like, I think it was the Citibank case. So I have to tell you, I was like, okay, that's a sign. Right. And so what I did immediately was I prayed on it and said, oh my gosh, what's this about? And what I realized is a lot of my work, and I've been really redoing so much of my work, that this year has been a lot about that and about really taking a stand for certain things. So I've been sitting there and I was kind of went, what is that about? And so I just said, okay, God, show me what I'm supposed to do. Make it a billboard so I don't miss it. Like it was like, okay. And I want to share about signs tonight as well, because sometimes we forget that there are signs, and sometimes the best way for God or Spirit to show us those signs is when we're really down. And I think, I was really down, and, I just put Owen down. It was just, I'll talk about that story in a minute if I can. And basically what happened was I heard the words Chris Watts, and I looked up and I went, okay, God, what's the funny here? Because I kind of thought it was a God funny on me as I played it back, like I said. And then I started looking at the research I did. Now I have some phenomenal research, right, on the Watts family. Not only Ronnie Watts and his family, but Cindy and her family, and I studied it at the time. Like this was months ago. Some of you heard me talk about it. And I was like, what? Like I saw patterns. Like one of the gifts I have is I can look at a family tree and see how patterns happen. And also, we've talked about this a little bit with criminals, is that, you can set up the circumstances, right? You can set up the exact circumstances in a family for something horrible to happen. And one kid will go on and create greatness, right? And the other will be like in the penitentiary. And how can you look at that? Well, we have to look at a lot of factors, obviously. But one of the things that I noticed, and it was very interesting to look at, this person, right? Yeah, exactly. Humanimal. Oh my gosh, it's so good to see some of you. Woohoo! So anyway, what happened was I started looking and I was like, oh my gosh, like the patterns in the family and some things that we didn't know about Cindy Watts' background was fascinating. So I had hired one of the best genealogists to do this with me. So what the plan is and what's going to happen with it is we're planning it out. There's going to be like 4 videos that I do. It's going to be on my Woo channel, not this channel. And I'll let you guys know. I'll come on and go, this is where it's going to be. Come over there. because I'm going to talk about it much more in multi-generational healing. I'll be talking about it in hidden family agreements, why things have to stop or turn out the way they do, how we get gifts and how we get our challenges, and how some of those things just get turned completely loopy. So it's going to be, I think, really an interesting insight into his family. And then I'm looking at some of the other crimes that I really want to look at, more about the people who committed these crimes. So that's kind of what's going on. And anyway, so it's going to be a 4-part thing. First will be like an overview of like, this is how it works. This is what I'm seeing. And then I'm going to look specifically at the how can I say, the dynamics in Ronnie's family, the dynamics in Cindy's family, and then how it came together in Chris Watts, and how that all of those energies, it's like this, you know, you can be born into a criminal family, right? Let's say you're, and I had a friend who was, and, you know, she was born into a big criminal family, and she was never a criminal, but she was always like afraid of taking risks because she felt that she would be accused of being a criminal. So you can change some of the you know, family dynamics, but what about a family that doesn't seem to have that going on? How do you find it? So that's what I'm going to look at. And yeah, it's, you know what is funny, Grandma Moses, I love that. Thanks, Nikki. Good to see you. Oh my gosh. So one of the things that it is actually, it's got my same name, and I'm going to try to change the name. It's kind of, I think I want to call it, you know, something like, you know, the Woo channel, or less woo and more you, something like that. So I kind of want to do it over there, because then people who come over there will know that I'm going to talk about the more of the woo stuff than the practical stuff. And I think that that's, you know, I think that's super cool. Black Rose. Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, let's see. Will you be covering Scott Peterson? Of course I'll be covering Scott Peterson. In fact, guess who also did his family tree? So I have that, and then I don't have it yet, but I am going to look into some other crimes that have interested me in terms of how those family patterns play out. And by the way, you know, so many people ask me about like, you know, because I can be very direct with some people, in case you didn't know it. And by the way, Glam Dolly 20, you are the best ever. Thinner. Girl, I'm 30 pounds lighter, okay? Let's just get to the good freaking news, okay? I literally went on a program that I stuck to. It was really that. It wasn't, you know, for those of you who know, we've all, like women, right? We've lost thousands of pounds in our lifetime. But one of the things I did was I found a new program that I really liked, and I'm changing it a little bit. Oh, sweetheart, Brittany, it's so good to see you. I hope you're doing well. And couple things I want to talk about, you know, just kind of give you guys some insight into what's going on planetarily, why all of a sudden we hit the skits. Oh, Rhonda, thank you. I'll mention that in a second. Why everybody hit the skits and what's going on astrologically, because I think it's so important to understand the energy of the stars. And thank you so much to everybody who's saying great stuff. Hope you have I have had no long-term symptoms. And the only thing I didn't realize about myself, and I didn't know this, you guys, I have been so isolated, right? And like, you know, as you know, I grew up with alcoholism, and we're the only people, this is the cliche, we're the only people who solve loneliness with more isolation. I mean, it's kind of like this, you know, I mean, just like profoundly lonely stuff going on, right? And I realized that a lot of it had to do with Owen. A lot of it had to do with, you know, he was failing. And it was very difficult. And every day, and it started really, I want to say in November. And every day I started looking at him and going, oh my gosh, he's not going to be here that much longer. And so much of that fear was there that when it was 3 days before Christmas, just so you know, I put him down on the 22nd. And there's no, I don't care what anybody says, there really isn't a harder decision than letting go of a loved one. You know, and when I say a loved one, you know, I got to be honest, my dad and I love my dad. I missed him like crazy, but I've never had that deep aching pain like I do with a pet. And it's because they're with you 24/7, and you know them, you love them. And so yeah, I'm feeling very good. I have been working very hard on creating a good team to redo my website, which I'm doing. And that's kind of like reformatting what I think is super important as we go forward, which I'm going to talk about with the astrology. So let me segue into that. So just so you know, it was really, I want to say, all right, I think you guys know this, but I'll tell you anyway. Some of you have heard the great curse of the even years, right, for presidents. So 1880 was Lincoln, right? And if you look at 1960, JFK, those are the presidents who die in office, okay? And by the way, there's a special conjunction that happens in the sky, okay? Now, the reason it doesn't happen with everybody in, every president, every even year, like 1980, 1980, Reagan was shot, but he didn't die. Of course, Reagan was an Aquarian, and they're kind of like resilient anyway. But one of the things that happened, if we look at 1860, 1960, 1980, and then 2000, this year in 2000, we have the exact conjunction of showing that a president who dies in office comes up. So it's really interesting to see. And also, just so, I don't know if any of you turned 60 this year. Okay, Helen's heard about it. Okay. So if you turn 60 this year, and that means you were born in 1960, okay? And to be honest, it's like a year frame in there, okay? One of the things that happens is that not only did you have a Saturn return and a conjunction of Jupiter and, wait for it, Chinese astrology also. Chinese astrology is subtle but powerful. And by the way, the only time in your lifetime you will have a Chinese astrology exact return is when you're 60. So at the age of 60, that is a huge turning point where people either choose to live or they choose to kind of go into that slope of retirement, and I'm tired and achy. And there's a very big, it's very powerful. You're not there yet, Duty Run. I'll let you know. You got time. Anyway, one of the things that happens is that when you look at first of all, Saturn, people talk about Saturn as being a bad planet. No, I think Saturn's great because a Saturn return lets you look at all the errors you made or the things you can do to correct them. So when you have that Saturn return, and now, all right, check this out. Now you have that in Jupiter and in Saturn conjuncting. So let me talk about what those mean. And by the way, that was a, yeah, oh, Nikki, you're not out of the woods. Sorry about that. She's like, oh, 61. No. Because I think I know your birthday and I think you were just in it. But the point I'm making is that conjunction was Capricorn, right? For the 1960 folks. And I think you have it too in your chart, if I'm not mistaken, because I've seen your chart. But then in what happened is just on December, guys, check this out. December 21st, both Jupiter and Saturn moved into Aquarius, but it kind of moved back a little and then it's moving forward into Aquarius. I'm going to talk about how that really is the dawning of the age of Aquarius. And I want to be very clear that it is fascinating that what is going on to me, and I want to be, again, very, very clear as I say this. One of the things that I've really learned this year, you guys, as I did more research and looked at more of the situations of what's going on, is to let you know that please understand that if you are a Democrat and hate Republicans now, or you're a Republican who hates Democrats, I want to really help you lift that energy a little. And I'll tell you why. Because everyone's being fooled. All right. I need to say that. And some of you know I'm on one side now. I moved from one side to the other, but I'm in the middle now. And the reason I'm in the middle is that what's going on right now is not American. This is not in my lifetime anyway. I've seen people fight for rights and things like that, but I've never ever seen this where people are so angry that they're wanting to rip other people's rights away. Now, the thing I want to say about this, and believe me when I tell you this, it's not America that's doing it. We are being fed information about each other that is overblown. And let me put it this way. Have you ever done has anybody ever done, like, I don't know about you, but I've written sales letters, right? You write a sales letter and you go, you can be a millionaire. First, get $1 million, and you have to find people's pain. All right. And as you find their pain, you can write and say, this is your pain. And they go, yes, yes, finally someone who agrees with me. And then you go, and here's the solution. Now, most people who do that, okay, honestly, we're trying to help. We're not trying to manipulate, because it can feel that way. But basically, if you know the pain you're in, right? You know what you're feeling, you Google it and you'll go, what is this? So the people who write those things will come up in the search engine and you'll read it and go, yeah, that's my solution. But I want to share with you what's been going on is we are being fed information that is not, that's actually not accurate. And it's not accurate on any side of this equation, okay? And I want to tell you, please, 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 exactly, Joshua, you got it. One of the things I want to say to everybody is really just, if you can just drop your shoulders for a minute and just bring your energy into yourself and just kind of like have some, I want to say empathy. Really understand that when people are attacking or verbally crazy or uprising, they're doing it because they're really at a high pitch of revolt. And it doesn't mean that they're right, and it doesn't mean that they're wrong. It means that's what they're experiencing, right? Hi, Tiffany. I'm like, oh, so good. And so what I want to say to you is that understand that it's we, and for those of you that are Americans, we as Americans, the biggest thing we have, the only thing we have is our right to say and express what we feel. But one of the things that I think we really need to start drawing the line with, and I said this early on, decorum, behave. I've had people go, on something, and I go, behave. You don't get to talk to me like that. And they were like, oh. And really just saying, you know what, it's not okay. I understand that you're in upset, and I understand that you think this, and I honor that's your feeling, and I just don't agree. See, I think the thing is that what happened? I think I wouldn't worry about Biden, Sandra, because I think we have to remember he knows he's going to die. He's old. We all know that he's not long for the world. So the real president is going to be Kamala Harris, and whether or not everybody likes it, loves it, whatever. This is like no spin zone here. I don't want to do that, but I want to say I think that there are people in the last year that lost lives. And I really want to be clear, everyone, if we can just say that we didn't cause it, we didn't create it, and we can't cure it. In other words, we can't take back the people who died from COVID. We can't change the cruelty that we saw inflicted upon other Americans. We can't change that now. And there's really that thing of like, if you really go into yourself and say, you know what, please remember that we are acting on a high level of fear, adrenaline going on, No, I didn't get the personal question. I might have, Sandra, forgive me. Okay. Yeah, I think that Shady Booty, I think the key, and she said something, I don't know if guy or girl, but bear with me. It says, it's time to unite and put away the hate campaign toward one another. Here's the deal, all right? I want to be very clear, because there's some people who are going, I'm never going to unite, And here's the thing about that. Even if we cannot unite on this energy, on this plane, we can always unite on the higher calling of what this country, what America represents, okay? And we have done a lot of things wrong, but you know what? We've done a lot of things right. And I just want to say, if so many people want to come here, okay, we're doing something right. Really, it is such an important thing that you understand that we're not pulling the strings. And I think that's the most frustrating thing for any side of the aisle you're on. And I want to share this with you. The Democratic side, right? Because I'm going to just use those two sides as an example, where the Democratic side has felt so helpless because they feel like these other people are taking over and this is what's going on. And the other side, the Republican side, are like, these people are taking over. This is what's going on. And as a result, the pitch of it became such a level of bonded hate that as Americans, we become bonded in our hate. And that was where I just had to go, I can't, right? So the question becomes, now that we're bonded in hate, what happened? Well, I need to let you know what happened is that we have been fed this information to hate each other through our media. Our media has not been reporting. I woke up this morning and I went, I really miss Walter Cronkite. I really miss him. I miss the old, the old guy who'd go, and that's the way it was. Those guys that kind of went, and then the tanks moved in and Russia did this and that happened. And you could go, and then my parents would go, oh my gosh. And they would decide who was to blame. But you see, now we turn on the TV and our television tells us who to blame. Oh, how funny. Embracing Tarot. Wait a second. She said, how funny, how ironic. I'm on week 32 of the Chakra Wisdom Oracle, which happens to be isolation. She's talking about this toolkit. And I'm learning to communicate and express myself better by taking the step back. Thank you. And you know something? I had to revisit this. And it's really interesting because I'm revisiting it and I'm recognizing that that's where everything is. That's where all of those ideas are that I had. And I think that, Shady Booty's talking about big tech and the media. And I think the big thing that happens too, and I want to be really fair in this, okay, and say, if you're conservative, listen to me for a minute, please, about this other side. In their world, they feel that they've been suppressed and the possibility of their rights being taken away and all of these awful things that happened, right? And what they're looking at is how big tech is finally shutting those other people down. And the media is on our side. Well, and I can understand if you feel that you're at least being validated by what you're hearing, okay? And then you go to the other side and they're going, don't you guys get the media is shutting us down? And on the left, they're going, it's about time. But you see, what's being missed here is that somebody's being silenced. And that's the issue. And I want to say this, how we relate to the issue is the issue. And the more rage and hate we point at the other side, the more we have to look at what's in us. And I took some time to reflect what has really gone on for me. And I think there's so many things that I wouldn't have been aware of, or I wouldn't have learned about so many different things if it hadn't been for these past 4 years. I wouldn't have known Juneteenth. I wouldn't have known so many historical things, which have been really incredible. And so I want to say to all of you that where we're going now planetarily, with Aquarius in Saturn and Jupiter, right? That is the planet of humanitarianism. Now I'm going to say the C word, and here I go, China. You have to understand that China is not a humanitarian country. And so when we look at things that I want to say are unproven, that there is possibly interference in our country and the way we run things. And when I say that, and just bear with me for a minute, I think you have to understand that they keep slaves. They have people in concentration camps that are making Apple parts and Nike parts. And we know these are true. This is true, right? And we knew this last year. So what I'm saying to you is there's no right absolute and the other side's wrong. And here's the irony. 20 years ago, we could kind of look at it and go, well, they have a point. Well, they have a point. And we didn't hate each other. Why do you think the hate has happened? Well, it's very simple. You see, if we are led to believe that another person, right, is telling you long enough that it's that guy who did it, what happens over time is that you start to believe that you are righteous in your anger and directing it at others. Why do you think there were people this summer, destroying businesses, burning cities, and the media was going, and it's mostly peaceful. In the background, you see these fires, right? Well, that doesn't look real peaceful to me, I'm just saying to you that, see, we're always told something different than what's actually happening. Yes, crazy shot lady, I want to say to you that the only way we can enter a more honest and kind time ahead, which is what she just said, hoping, is to recognize that we have a responsibility. We have a responsibility to personally just do a Stop the Hate campaign. I can't blame my Republican brothers or sisters, my Democrat brothers and sisters, and I can't blame my Black brothers and sisters or my white brothers and sisters. You see, if there is a collective consciousness that created this, I want to let you know the only way out is through. We got ourselves into the middle, guys. You've heard me say the story, what was her name? It was a short-lived show called Angie. And this actress once said to a friend of mine, she was the star of the show for a year, and her show got canceled. Hi, Gavin. You want to say hi to everybody? Go, Mr. Gav, here he is. He's an only dog now. Her show only lived for 1 year. And when it ended, she came on and she came on to a bunch of us, like we were all hanging out. She said to a friend of mine, and I was sitting there and I heard it, and she said, Paul, I slept my way right to the middle. And I think what we've done is we have gone into mediocrity. And why? I want you to think about this for a minute. I'm throwing this seed out there. Who benefits when America has gone into its own civil war and hates one another? Oh, thank you, Ron. You're so, just thank you so much. How do we benefit, right? Who benefits when America's hating each other? Because it's certainly not the left, and it's certainly not the right, because everybody's shouting so loud that they're canceling each other out. Nobody hears anything. So why is it continuing? I'll tell you why. Because it is not one person. It is our media who is somehow feeding this. And the more we get fed this information that you're supposed to hate this group, the more that group will rise up. Now, bear with me. And this has happened for hundreds of years with Black folks, right? Because we were like, oh, they're bad, or they're less than. Well, the minute you have that less than thing going on one side, you're going to have an uprising. So what I want to say, yes, shady booty, big government, but I want to say something else about that. That's very important. What if it isn't just our country? See, who hates us enough to want to see Americans destroy each other? Because I'm going to tell you right now, no sane leader, and don't even get into it with me on this stuff, because I'm going to say to you, we can look at both sides or cray-cray, all right? But I'm saying to you, no one would want Americans hating each other who are true Americans. Now, as I say that to you, because why? Didn't we band together in World War II? Didn't we band together I was just thinking about Ireland and the other allies, Canada. We came together as group and went, we're going to go in there and save these people who are being persecuted. So why would an entire half of our population want to persecute the other half? Think about that for a second. What would the benefit be? Because if you look at it, you can say those people are wrong, but if you're persecuting them, you're right because they're bad. And I think that started to happen in 1939. Germany, didn't it? Just saying. What did somebody say? Communists. Here's the thing. That's very true. But I also want to let you know, one of the things that began to happen in the last few years is that as America was, hey, we're going to take care of our own first kind of thing, all of these countries that were getting billions of dollars from us started to go, we better make this stop. We better get them back to where we need them. So I want to say that as kind of an overview, as a thought. And the only way we're going to find peace is just to just allow ourselves to not take that superior position, and it's hard. Oh gosh, I hear you, and so what I want to say to you is this: the only way we can trick the enemy is by banding together. It's the only way we can, really trick them into recognizing that what they did failed. So the truth of it is that we're going to have extremists in our country, and that's the way it is, right? So what is this? Tons of cybercrime related to issues pushing U.S. divide from it. Oh, yes, I agree with you, Joshua. And I'm going to say this too. People they're illegally selling, as I think I told some of you, they're illegally selling my deck on the internet, right? And at the time, what they did was they put a QR code on, and I'm going to do a thing about how you can spot counterfeits from China in all things. So I'm going to do a video on that. But what they did was they put a QR code. Well, I don't have a QR code. And so people were contacting me by the hundreds. Hey, I need the QR code to download the booklet that comes with the deck because I didn't get one. I go, if you didn't get a booklet, you didn't get a legitimate deck. And people are like, oh, well, how can I get the booklet? I go, buy the deck. So, but what's happening now is they've gotten smarter. So China has actually started putting the QR code with the downloaded book. They copied my book, and they are now selling it to stores in the US. So that has been really hard for me because it's hurt me even worse than anything. So what I want to say to you about this, let's get back to the, oh no, it's not even the UPC. They can copy anything, Joshua. It's crazy. Oh, I just put you up there. Oh, hi, Joshua. So thanks. How to take it down? I guess I could. Oh, okay. So anyway, the upshot of the whole thing is that, I'm sorry, I don't know how to get you removed. I'm sorry, Josh. I kind of hit your, okay, here we go. I have a cybercrime specialist. Oh, I totally want to talk to him. Let's do it. Okay. Let's see. I got the Chakra Wisdom Oracle book for my grandma to do with me this year. She's excited. Thank you for creating such cool experience. You know what? And I want to let everybody know it's free on my YouTube channel. And I don't know how to, I'm so sorry. Dang it to heck. I don't know how to get this thing off. Hold on one second. Oh, maybe I just, I don't know how to, boop. I don't know how to move it. Sorry, I'm in this like new thing. So now you're there with me. I think you re-click the name. Okay, I'll try it. Nope. That just made me go full screen. Okay. Oh, it's so fun. So I think that the bottom line is that, and I'm gonna wrap up in a minute, but oh yeah, Royal Army says China really pisses me off. Oh, they need to do their thing. Stop copying everything. But here's the issue. I'm sorry that you're up there, Dudiron. Just scroll back. Okay, I'm going to scroll back. Hold on. There it is. Ah, I did it. Thank you. Yes, I did click it. Okay. So here's the thing. I'll talk to you about that, Dudiron, because it's like a little too much for me at this point. So one of the things that I want to say about China is that they have, the way it has worked, okay, is, and I don't know if I'll even be targeted because now once I talked about, how they were targeting me, I'm going to tell you this truthfully. I've counted 50 illegal sites on Amazon selling my deck. The minute I go and, I have to go in and file and have them all taken down, there are 50 more to replace them. This is how insidious China is. They are imprisoning Uyghurs, and that's my people. Those are Hungarians. And the thing I want to say is that, the danger is this. You see, our secrets. And this is what happened in the last few years. The oh, thank you so much for Duty Run. You're such a sweetie pea. Hold on, I'm gonna do Duty Run. Okay. What they did was they have spies everywhere, and they put their spies in various places in the US. They'd work in different companies, and they would steal. I mean, you heard about this like last year from the Harvard guy who got caught. He was giving our military plans to China, and everybody's going, oh, it's Russia. Can I tell you something? Russia doesn't have enough money to buy a good pen. All right. So I would say to you that it is definitely the country with the money that is funding everybody else. So I just need to say that China has billions, because what they do is they take and they steal our special plan, which, how much did this medicine cost for us to create? Oh, I'm going to say 17 billion. We created this from 17 billion. We then have them make it, and they create it for less than $1 million. And they have no overhead costs of creating these products. So what's going on, exactly, is that, you see, we're ignoring all of the people that have ties to China. And you see, those people are going, look, this person is from Russia. And it's like, I remember that in school. Remember when you were going, well, Johnny did this. Yeah, well, you did this. And it was just like this, who could make up the worst thing? Well, the problem is the world has already been seeded with how China's really trying. And that's another thing. It was, it's so clear that the whole thing, I'm not going to get too much into it, but how did COVID suddenly not come from China? I just want to know, like, how did that go away? It's because there's so many people saying it, PO'd, yes, embracing my best friend, told me this morning that, I don't know what PO, pissed off. Okay. I'm hoping that I know what that means. I don't know yet. Yes, red wine. Red like wine. Okay. Everything is made in China. Oh man. I just, I know, I got to tell you guys, if it hadn't been, I was so down, and literally Duty Ron texted me and said, are you okay? And I was like, it took me like an hour to lift my head, because I haven't been able to work. The whole thing was just like too much. And I just was like, it's really hard when you keep saying to people, guys, this is what's going on. And they're going, no, it's this, it's because you have an orange pillow that's the problem. I'm like, no. It's not the pillow. Don't look at the pillow. Stop looking at the pillow. They're going, I have to look at that. And it's like, no, you have it all wrong. And so it's really hard, because you know how there's a book called The Dance of Anger. And the point of the book is this. And I'm just going to give you the real quick cliff note, which is the person who is the angriest screaming is not angry. It's the other one. And here's the thing. The person who is screaming, this is true, you guys, you have to look at this. The other side's going, oh, that's just a conspiracy theory. Really? So I just want to say to all of you, that that this kind of stuff, the only way to heal is to rise above it. When I was little, and I tell you, my mother used to say this to me, and I always thought it was kind of a cliche, funny thing. And now I really kind of get it. Rise above it means energetically. When someone is in that much pain and that much anger and going, that's just a conspiracy, it's because whatever they think they gained, they have to destroy you to keep. Think about that for a minute. That's not America. Where is that thinking? That's not American thinking. American thinking is, oh yeah, okay. Oh, you want to come do that with me? I'll share it with you. See, I think we have to look. I love that. Or are you kidding, Duty Ron? He just said, my tattoo on my forearm says rise above. And that's the thing. We have to elevate energetically. I'm getting truth bumps. We have to elevate energetically. And the only way to do that is to dive under the wave, breathe, drop your shoulders right down. You're going to notice how far it went down, and recognize that everything that is happening, we are very lucky that there are enough people who will never, ever let another country take over America. Because I'm going to tell you, this is not about Republicans. It's not about Democrats. It's about another country's influence and wanting to take over America. So I'm going to stop that there because it's going to start sounding like she's crazy. And I just want to say that we can do anything, and I want to say this, and I know, no offense to anybody who's not American, because it's like this thing right now, we have to remember that we are the cog in the wheel. We are that linchpin. We're the last bastion in some ways of decency. Now, I'm not excluding other countries that are decent, okay? Because I'm looking at Australia, UK, I'm looking at Canada. There's decency. But if you think about America as a whole, we have to recognize that we are the last hope for all voices. And when we look at all voices, it's not just, oh, we have to help those poor people. It's that we are all equal under God. We are all equal. And that's what America is on. We are on that thing of like, if we're all equal, guys, if someone's yelling at me, that's my equal. And I have to say, you know what? I know you're in pain, but it's not, I have a right to disagree, and I understand your pain. Let's talk about what's bothering you, not what you think is going on. And I think if we look at it that way, really, there are two great fears in life. Fear of not getting what you want and fear of losing what you have. And that creates the friction. That's why each side with those kinds of things come into a, exactly, Allie, we really can rise above it. And the only way to rise above it is to not think that another point of view is wrong. We have to, I used to, I don't anymore, but I used to work with couples. I don't know why they wanted me to work with them because I'm not a couple expert, but one of the exercises I would teach is when they're in an argument, they'd have this thing and they'd kind of I would do an intuitive session with them. And I would say, okay, so let's do this. Person A, I would say the guy, I want you to argue, all right, her point of view. And to the woman, I would say, I want you to argue his point of view. And I want you to fight it. And they would go, what? And I said, because once the other person has heard you, it's not going to be that big a deal. And inevitably, it was like he would start arguing her point of view and she would go, I can't believe you heard me. And then she would argue his and he goes, you were listening? And there was this moment of yeah. And what came up was, and this was the constant thing of well, as long as you heard me, I guess it's okay that you won't do it. See, I think we're living in such a time when we don't listen. We're so afraid. And by the way, it is a scary time. I'm going to say that when Owen died, the day he died, I had made an appointment. I'm going to wrap up with this. I had made an appointment a few days prior. And, oh, I love you, Black Rose. Thank you for the super sticker. I don't know what that is, but it's fantastic. It's so cute. But the day he died, I had made an appointment 4 days before, and I called the vet because it was right before Christmas. And I said, I really want to come in because if he goes into a spiral, he's the kind of dog that he needs to be in his home. And I can't bring in North Carolina, you can't bring in a vet to put your dog down unless there's an end of life consultation, which is another X amount of dollars, right? That they have to do prior. So I said, I want to come in and do an end of life consultation. I'm not saying that he's ready to go, to leave us, but I want to do this. And so he's like, okay. So I drove there right before Christmas. It was on December 22nd. And I love my vet because I'm the only one who asks him impossible questions. And he always says that, why do you always ask me these impossible questions? So I love that. Embracing tarot. You guys, we have to just listen to this for a second. I keep forgetting, like people will quote something I've written back to me and I go, I wrote that? I don't even remember. But it says, that's what week 32 of the Chakra Wisdom Oracle Toolkit, boop, 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 is all about. Where is she? Here we go. Fear-based emotions are really just fear-based emotions. It's great when one can rely on intuition instead of fear-based emotions. See, and the truth is that we want to love each other. So I took Owen in and I get to the vet. And of course they have these procedures now, right? They take the dog in, and then luckily my vet has a thing. They allow you and one person to come in. If your dog is dying, you're allowed to bring them in for the, to put them to sleep. Anyway, I think red like what? Oh, your birthday. I want to talk about that. Okay. So one of the things that happened, they came out, they took him in, and she said, well, what do you want? I said, I want you to do tests. And I'll tell you why. Because I want to make sure that my suspicion is true, that it's some kind of like lymphoma, because every one of his lymph glands were like marbles, like they were so hard. And I was like, he'd stopped eating 3 days before. And he was just kind of laying there and he would just stare and he would just want to be near me. And yeah, obviously. And so when I took him in, I said, I want those tests. So she took him in and Doc came out. And when the doctor comes out, so he came out and he said, well, he's not good. And he said, we know that. And I said, well, yeah. I said, because you see everybody, for those of you that don't know, my dog had a 90% enlarged heart. He was given 3 months to live. I think it was June of 2019. Okay. So this is like, and with this enlarged heart, my big hearted boy, he stayed on and he was just as impossible and loving as ever. And anyway, the vet came out and he said, Tori, why do you want me to do tests? He said, it's, we have to send tests out. And I said, Doc, I just want to know, because when he goes, I want to know that I wasn't putting a dog to sleep that was still healthy, but I feel like he's suffering. And he said, he looks like he's suffering. Exactly, Duty Run. I thought he was going to die when I was gone a year and a half ago. Anyway, so, Doc said, okay, so what do you want to do? And I said, well, can you do some kind of test? He said, look, I can do a quick blood test and give you a 75, 85, 90%. I said, which one? He goes, oh God. All right, Tori, 75%. I said, okay, 75% certainty that it's lymphoma and it's spread and it's bad. I said, okay. So he goes in, comes out with the result. He said, Tori, it is lymphoma. From what I'm seeing, he said, I've seen many, many, many cases. And he said, I can give you some medicine so he'll eat. But I want to be very clear with you that he'll be back in the next few days. You'll be back in the next few days. Oh gosh, thank you so much. Nikki, thank you. Nikki did a mastery class with me at the beginning of 2020. And so every week she, you saw him and he'd bark and anyway, whew. So, he said, well, I said, why would I want to do that? And he said, well, he'll make it through Christmas. And I looked at him and said, every day was Christmas with Owen. It didn't matter. Like I would get mad at him and he would do something hysterically funny and I would be like, oh my gosh. And he loved me. And why would I want to sit there in my house for 3 days eating chocolate, watching Hallmark movies as my dog is dying and suffering? He said, I said, okay, let me ask you this. And this is the part where Doc was like, Tori, I said, what would you do if it was your dog? And he goes, I hate when you ask me that. He goes, I can't answer that. And of course I went, and he went, all right. Well, if it was my dog, Tori, I'd give him the medicine for a couple days. But he said, I'm in a different situation. He said, because if my dog started to fade 2 days from now, he said, on Christmas Eve, I'd just bring him in and put him to sleep. He said, but you don't have that luxury. So anything you do would be okay. And I said, let me think about this for a minute. And I said, I agree. And I said, I love that dog too much to let him suffer. And he said, okay. And he said, do you want to go in? And I looked at him like as though he had just like said the most disgusting thing in the world to me. And he went, hold on. I said, I would never abandon him. I made a promise to that pet. I made a promise that I would be with him until his last breath. And that is what I'm going to do. I'm sorry about your sister drama. So I went in, and this is, guys, this is like, talk about woo, frickin' woo, right? So I had gone with a friend of mine who, I'm sorry, I'm like, oh, my tissue. Okay. I'd gone with a friend of mine who was dude, she had the same birthday as me and the same freaky. Anyway, so we went in, and actually I went in with my other friend, Nicole, and we went in, and I stood, Owen was laying like this, and I came around to the front, and he started to sit up like, oh, good, you're here. Good. You know, you're here. We can go. I'm so glad you're here. And he looked at me, and I can't explain it except to say I knew, and he knew. Like, he looked at me and said, oh, and he just put his head down, and he wasn't a licker, you know, he just wasn't. And he put his head down, and Doc said, you know, he just kept talking, because he kept talking through the whole thing, and it's not my first rodeo, but I let him, and basically, you know, he gave him the first shot, and as Owen started to go to sleep, you know, I just said, you know, I just love you. And that's what you say to a pet. That's what you say to someone. You know, there's no words, even if they understand you, even if it's humans. You know, the last words I said to my dad were, I love you. Like, that's all there is to say in that moment. And as he really just started to go, he reached toward me and he licked my cheek. And he went to sleep, and then the doc gave him the next shot, and he was gone. And I was holding his paw, and it was like this moment, everybody. It was this moment when I felt him slip away, and I couldn't catch him. Like, I couldn't stop it. It was this truly, truly sad moment. And, you know, it's such a moment in your life when, especially pets, because they mark a time, and sometimes it's happy, sometimes it's not. But both Owen and Frank saved my life. You know, Bill Jones, whoa, good to see you, man. I'm like going, yeah, one of my buddies. So good to see you. Yeah, so basically, one of the things that really hit me were some of the pictures I later saw of Owen, and you know, when I looked in his eyes and saw how much he loved me. And anyone who has ever lost a pet, you know, we truly can be there for you, but we can't go through the pain for you. You know, I think it's kind of like my friend Linda said it, you know, we can be there with you, but we can't go through it for you. And there are just moments where you just want to, you feel like you've been sucker punched, and you just feel like this moment, like, how am I going to go on, you know? And then you remember the love. You remember how much they loved you. And it just changes you. It just changes you. And thank you, Jenny. And, you know, I remember after my dad died, a friend of mine, my friend Joe, and I were having coffee, and, you know, after the death and his death and stuff, and he said, you know, watching what you went through, I'm so glad that I just don't have a relationship. I don't want love. I don't want any of that. And it's just not what I want in my life. And the one thing I can tell you that I will stand with until the day I die is that love is always worth the risk. It is always worth the risk, no matter what. You can never, ever lose when you love somebody, even and when you look at some, crime, right? It's like you can look at a lot of people commit crime because they say it's love. And I'm sorry, you guys, because there's going to be somebody who says, "Oh my gosh, she blew her nose in front of everybody," and it's just like, yeah, it's Gina, thank you. And one of the things also I really want to just say that the depth of pain that people feel from loss is directly related to how much you were willing to love. And so, I think his loss reminded me of the love. And, I just want to say also, for those of you that, I don't know if you follow her or not, I really don't. I haven't followed this person. I haven't followed anybody. I mean, every once in a while, Duty Rod, of course. But, I think what really inspired me to come on tonight is watching an older blog of mommy ramblings. I forget, but anyway, I forget the name right now. But she had lost her son last year, and I was just like, this poor woman. Oh my God. Let me see. It felt the same. I say goodbye to my schnauzer. Oh my God, that is just when they're 15. And here's the thing. And Annalisa, I'm glad you said that. She said, it was a sad day, but now I just remember all the sweet and goofy things he did. And yes, time reframes things, and time makes you, I don't want to say it distances you from it, but if you are willing to fully commit to living, and living because they lived. See, if you don't walk away from someone loving you and losing them with a feeling of, I'm gonna make something from that. I'm gonna honor that. And in many ways, you guys, that was the truth of how I felt about Shanann Watts, which is why I was so stunned in that whole year. I can look back now and say that. And I'm glad you said that. Shady Booty said grief is a process. And you know what? I have found that grief is a travel companion. No matter how I go along or where I go in life, there's always something that I'm going to maybe mourn the loss of in moments, and I think that we all this past year lost someone. We've all looked at, I know Shady Beauty, right? She just said, Shanann, I still think of that often. And I think that, when something like that hits us, and I think that's a very big, it had a lot of us in confusion. And then you talk to law enforcement and they were like, well, yeah, that happens every day. And I didn't see that every day, but I do want to say, gotta go because I'm emotionally drained. Oh gosh, I'm so sorry. Dot to dot, I'm so sorry. Yes, I know. I hope to see you again, love. And so what happens is that, they've said it makes strange bedfellows, right? So what I want to say about this is that I don't know how to process it in a day. Like, I don't know how to process things day to day. And you guys understand when I say this to you, I know you'll get this because, well, you're pretty smart, right? Because at the end of that day, I can look back and go, yeah, of course he had a good run. They always have a good run. I mean, I wrote a story about him and about, I wanted a black dog. Gina, I'm sorry. I wanted a black dog. And I'll put it on the community tab in here for you if you want to look at it. And so what I'm going to say is this. Now that I did this, I'm kind of, a little back. I am going to do some more stuff on planets. And I am going to tell you some announcements later. My brother passed in December 2017. I just now am feeling somewhat better about the holiday time. Yeah, I think that's so important. Oh gosh, embracing tarot. Are you the one who took? Okay, she just said, I remembered the week I took the journey with the grief card and the Chakra Wisdom Oracle Toolkit. This is reminding me of that journey with the fable. Maybe you can revisit it. Honey, I'm revisiting it every day. It's like, it's, he hit the owner jackpot with you. And you know what? He was as funny as the day is long. I have to tell you, I was looking back over some of the pictures with Owen. He was hysterically funny. And he was such a Cancerian, It was like, if he was mad at you, you'd get stink eye. Have you ever gotten a stink eye from a dog? Like, what do I do to get rid of that? So anyway, it's funny, embracing terror with the grief card. So what I want to say is that as we're looking into 2021, and as we look at who we've lost and who we've become, I want to invite everybody to just really recognize that we are going through this together. We're not alone. You see, it feels so freaking lonely, but I want to say that if you're someone that is experiencing a crossroad, I recognize it now. I recognize that that's what I work with. I work with those crossroads because sometimes in life, and I'm going to say this and kind of wrap up, sometimes this is what happens. We're in this place, and I'm finding this with a lot of people over 40, okay? It's kind of like, oh, sorry, Madonna, where it's like this. You're at this crossroad, and you've created certain things in your life, and then you get to this crossroad, and you're kind of like, well, I know I wanted, that was my end goal, right? But I'm here. And it's like, why can I not move further? Well, it's because it is time to reshape your own destiny. And by that, I mean, who you thought you were a year ago is not who you are today. This past year, with the severity of COVID and so many things that have happened, it has forced many of us to really look at who we are and remember who we became in this year gives us a definition of the strength we have to carry on or not. So I just want to say, as I leave you with a few thoughts, the thought I want to give you is that this is not the end. It's not we've reached a goal. And I was saying this to people about the election, because half of America thinks they've reached the goal and the other half thinks they haven't. And what I want to say is that everything in our world right now is just another situation. And what we're learning, and what we have learned in this last year, is to become internally stronger, even if it didn't appear that way. And I really want you to take the time for yourself. And if you do this tonight, you do it tomorrow, just before you go to bed, if you would write this down for yourself and say, who have I become from my experiences this year? And I want you to take that time and really just kind of say, who am I? Like for me, so much of who I've become is like, I recognize how much I love my country, and how important it is to me. And I've recognized how much I loved my dog and how much he loved me. So many of these things that we're looking at are so vital to where we're going that I can't even tell you that in order for you to recognize what 2021 is going to become for you, you must know who you've become in this last year. And that is key to all of this conversation. If you know who you've become, and when I say that, like, what values have you taken on? Who have you recognized that you loved? Who have you let go of? Who have you unwittingly made a judgment on? And who have you called names or not? Who's called you names? What was that experience? And how did it change you? See, because I think we need to look at, as we take on, and I'm looking at the Chakra Wisdom Oracle Toolkit. It's such a great book. Something I'm actually redoing it. But as we look at the toolkit and we really look at the fact that we're in our first chakra, which is really the foundation again, I want you to know that what happened this year was like taking a stick of dynamite, putting it under our energetic foundation and blowing it up. We are no longer who we thought we were. So, and Nikki just mentioned, I'm going to see you soon in Life Purpose Divination. I'm completely changing that course. Okay. That is going to be like unbelievable because it is really, I'm going to change the title as well, because one of the things, and I'm going to give you this like tidbits that I really have learned, is that we have mistaken milestones for the destination. And when you recognize how to look at that, it doesn't seem so bad. Oh, you're waiting for my yawn. Wes, you're so funny. It's like, oh, because I'm going to yawn any second because, you know, truth bumps. Okay, so I am going to do, it's going to be a very like tight group. I'm just going to let Nikki's asking when should I enroll. Probably within the next 3 weeks, I'm going to do a very tight group. And what I want to do with that is that entire thing will then lead into, if people want it, they can go into a facilitator training, or, you know, I want to do more with the reader training that you did. So I'm so stoked. That means psyched and stoked all mixed together and unable to say. No, Robin. Oh gosh, if we can just send some beautiful light to Robin. And also, that's it. Mommy Rambling Blog, I think is Ramblings. Mommy, I can't think of her name, but I watched her stuff last night and God bless her. Please let's send some prayers to her as well for the loss of her son. I know it's been 6 months and just awful. Okay, so let me see. Robin, oh, I'm so sorry. And I want to come back to Robin. Robin, I am so sorry that goodbye was not with you holding his hand. And I also want to say that I'm just vibing in. Hold on. Yeah, his biggest regret was time. He wanted to spend more time with you. And there's a feeling of how much he loved you. Boy, you had a great dad, girl. You had a fantastic father. And you know what? No one can take that from you. No one. So I want to say that God bless him and God bless you. And I'm sorry that you've been through such a, you know, thing. And I think Grandma asked about how can we find out about my new course and stuff. I will be talking about it here. I'll definitely be putting up some links when I get closer. I'm redoing my whole website and it's going to be so cool. You guys, it's going to be like an experience. You're going to be able to come in and you'll do a little meditation and it'll take you through. I'm so excited about this. It'll take you through to knowing the difference between your brain and your intuition and then seeing the path. It's really cool. All right. So that said, I am just so grateful for all of you. And I just, my name is Carol or Carolyn. Oh, it says Donna. It's like, you know, something that's, I used to do that at Starbucks. I would use the name, what was the name I used? I think I used Ruth. Ruth was when I'd buy anything that was a brownie or chocolate or sugar, anything bad, Ruth would buy it. And then I'd use my regular name for coffee. And so I was on the road and I gave my staff a Starbucks card. So every morning they'd go up, you know, a couple of them, they'd go up and buy coffee, right? So one morning while I'm on the road, they hear, Ruth, and everybody, they said, we all turned around and said, where's Tori? Because they thought I was there and I wasn't. Yes, Robin, your father, you know something? I so relate. The love of, and you know what? I really want to say this. If you had a good dad, ladies or gentlemen, I'm more the ladies in that sense. It's more like the guys had a good mom. If you had a good dad, you've been blessed. You know, what a lovely, lovely legacy he has left you. What a lovely legacy. And that's so much, by the way, that the idea of recognizing a legacy is what life purpose divination is about. But it's so much more, and I may change the title. So there you go. Anyway, you guys, exactly, Black Rose, so good to see you. Who have I become? That's something that we all have to face. It's the moon in the tarot. We're also in a waning moon. I think waning. We're in the waning moon. He was a wonderful father. Thank you, Robin. Yeah. And you know what too, Robin? I'm going to tell you something that may help you. Before my mother died, she said, I'm going to always look for my birthday as a sign. I think you've heard me share that. And what I want to say to you is look for your father's birthday as a sign. When you look at those numbers, I think they try to send us messages. And I really do believe that there are messages, there are messages that we get. And if you really get how much he loved you, love breaks through that veil. It always does. And please let 2021 be better than 2020. Listen, it can only get better if you get better. If we get better, it's like somebody said to me, is it going to get any better? And I said, it will. It won't, but you will. That was the thing. Okay. Much love, everyone. I'm just like sending you so much love. Tori, fun fact, Trisha from, Web Sleuths. Love it. All right. Love to her. Give her my best. And you guys have a great night. I'm going to go finish my cry and try to see if there's some kind of Hallmark movie on while I'm finishing up some work. All right, guys. Love you lots and have a very, very blessed night. You will be seeing more of me because I've got a business coach who's making me do this kind of stuff. So I'll be becoming a little bit more visible. And I also have someone who's sponsoring me. So more later. Love you. Bye for now.